Welcome back. So now we have people signed up to our wait list and we have the ability to move them off the wait list so they can sign in and get access to the course. So now we'll build that sign in process, and what we'll do is do it in the header of the homepage. So before we had a header in there that didn't have any actions on it. So I deleted it. I'm going to rebuild it. So I'm actually going to use a pre-built element again for this one and then modify it. So there's this really nice website header element that comes with Bildr. And so I'll drag it to the top of my homepage here. And first let's look at it because I want to show you why I like it. So if we go to the homepage, it's got this nice sticky, and I don't know the CSS term for it here, but that blur effect. So you can kind of see the stuff underneath it blurring as you scroll down the page, and then the header is always there. So I want to keep those properties. I don't want to have to redo them from scratch. Some things you'll notice, it does come with a narrower max width on it. So I'm going to override that, remove a couple things I'm not using, and then add some pieces in so that my sign in action happens via this button here. So let's go create it. We'll keep that live view open. First thing I want to do is let's load our icon. So from our media library, we should have our goat loaded. There it is. Let's give it some alt text. Picture of a goat. And then, and actually on the container max width itself, I do want to override. It has this max width of, I think, 940. So I'm going to leave it there because I don't want to touch that existing class, and just go inline here and put in my own. And make it match our utility container, so that it's as wide as the rest of the homepage. Okay, so let's go back. Let's get rid of a couple of elements we're not going to use. We're not going to have links here on this page. So we'll get rid of the features and pricing links. And then I want to rename this button because it's not going to be the sign up, because we already have that further down the page. This is going to be called Go to Sign In, because there's going to be a couple of actions here to actually sign in. One, to click this button to expose an email and password field to sign in. Another button to actually sign in. So let's do this one. Go to sign in, and then change its display text. And then let's give it our primary color, which is barely different than the blue that it already has, but we want to be consistent. Then we're going to put another container in here that's going to hold the stuff that actually lets us sign in. So we're going to put in a container and call it sign in. Now in that container, we want a few things, and I'm going to put some styling on them as I go, so bear with me. So we want the email input. We want the password input. We want another button that actually signs us in. And then we want a text box, because what we're going to do is we're going to have a message here that doesn't show by default, even when you expose the inputs. But let's say you typed your email wrong when you're signing in, or your password wrong. We want to show a message about invalid password or email. So we're going to put a text box here, and we'll start to style these and fill them out and hide them as we go. Now let's make this look better and add some details on it before we hide it and build our sign-in actions. So I want to make this sign-in container align things better. So I'm going to do flex row to make them go across, and then I want them to start at the beginning of the container horizontally but align center vertically. So flex start center should do that. Great. Now let's get some space. Let's just use the margins to get some space between these buttons and get rid of this little margin at the bottom of the inputs, and then do a little bit of styling on the text box. So let's walk through that element by element. Email input. Let's give it a nice descriptive name of sign in, and placeholder text of enter email. And then, as we've done before, make the margin bottom inline 0. So we'll do similar to our password input. We'll go, let's do margin 0 at the bottom, and then give it some space on the left between the inputs. And then we need its name and placeholder text. And then our button. Let's go. This is the actual sign in button, which is going to sign us in when we click it. So we want that to name and text to reflect that. And then we want, let's do, so we know it's a different button than the proceed to sign in or go to sign in button. Let's give it our secondary color. And yeah, let's give it a little room on the left there. Same distance. And then for the text box, we will do, we want it to be white color because actually through the action, we're going to add some color around it, and we'll see that pretty soon. So actually, I think before this, I added a different utility class, so I didn't have to go inline here. There's 2 of them there, so let's make sure that's right. Okay, so you can't see it anymore. It's that white on the white background. And I think that's it. So now we just need to hide things with the display none utility class. So we're going to expose them through actions on clicks. So we want to hide this, and let's give this a better name. This is going to be, we'll call it invalid username or password, because later we're going to have a couple different warnings. I'm only going to build one in the lesson, but a couple different warnings, like if you're already on the waiting list and you're still on the waiting list and you try to sign in, or there was just an error for some reason. But we'll just build one for now because all the other ones are going to be exactly the same, essentially just duplicate elements and duplicate actions that'll be available in the pattern. So we'll hide this one with display none. And then we will separately hide the sign-in container with display none. Great. So now we're back to our initial state of just seeing that go to sign in button. Okay. Let's build the first action, which is going to be clicking on the go to sign in button, which will hide it and show the sign in container, but it won't show that text box because we hid that separately. So we'll name this action go to sign in, just like the button. And there's just 3 actions on it. It is adding a style class to hide the button, so display none on the go to sign in button, and then removing the display none style class from the sign in container. I always mix this up. So we're doing I was looking for the container when I should have been looking for the element I'm hiding. So we're removing the display none from the container sign in. And then, oh yeah, that's it. So now we just need to attach this action group to the go to sign in button. So events on click go to sign in. So let's just test that that's working first before we keep going. Let's just refresh our page here. So everything that we set up looks like it's set up. Click the button. Perfect. Okay, there's a little bit of a spacing issue that I think I'll just deal with separately, but the important thing is we have our inputs now. So now we need to have actions for information in these inputs and a click of this button to actually sign us in to our app. So let's go do that. So before we actually build the sign in action itself, we want to do a couple of actions, and I'll show you why, that are part of the action. So we will create the sign in action and come back to it. So we'll call this sign in user. And we'll add that action. Let's make sure we get the right one. We want sign in with password, because those are our project settings. So we're going to pass in the login ID from the elements, the password from its element. And then notice down here you have some actions if it's successful, if it went wrong, and then the one we'll build, which is the invalid username or password. So we don't have actions for those yet that I can pick here. So let's go back and build those first and then come back and finish building the sign in action group itself. So I'm going to create an action that's called go to course page, because when I sign in, that's what I want my user to have happen to them. I want them to sign in and get brought to the course immediately. So this is very easy, a single action of opening one of our pages into the browser tab. So we'll keep it in the current tab, and we will open the route that we already created for the course page /course, and then go back and create an action for the invalid name or password. So we'll just call it sign in invalid. And there's several steps on this one, so I'll walk through them because what we want to happen is we want here, if you type in a wrong password, for example, and you click this, we're going to get a red warning that says, invalid username or password. But it has to be styled, because all we did on that text box right now is make it white color, so you won't even see it if you tried that right now. So we're going to actually apply the styling via the action. So we're going to add a few style classes here to the sign-in container. We want our warning color, which is that red background color. And that goes on the container sign-in. We want some padding, so there's some space around the text itself. So there's already that built-in 15 pixel padding utility class on container sign-in. And then let's give it a little border radius so it's not as boxy as the warning messages that we have on sign-up. Something I may go back and apply to them later, but let's just do it here. Add one more style class that I created offline, which is this border radius of 3 pixels. So to give it some rounded edges. And then pretty quick from here, we want to hide our 3 elements: the email input, the password input, and let's just duplicate this one rather than going all the way through it, and the button sign in. And now we want to show our text warning. So let me just make sure we have the right text on that element actually. Let's go back to it. I know we named it. I want to make sure the display text is what we want. No, it still says text box. So maybe we'll make it friendlier later, but for now we'll just do that so it's obvious that we're showing the right warning. All right, now we can go fill out our actual sign-in sign in user action. So we're signing in the user. They're putting from the current page an email address from in the email, enter email input. They're putting a password into the enter password element. And then, so what we want to happen is then if they click this button to successfully go to the course page, and then let's say they put in a wrong name or password, we're going to show our invalid sign-in action. All right, so let's now just make sure we have this action connected to our sign-in button. So on click, sign in user. Okay, let's go test this out. Okay, so if we go and look at my end users table, you can see I've created a few users just to test the sign-in process out a bit. So the first one I've already verified and taken off the waitlist as myself. And then I'll show you how to do that with this test user as well. So you can see here my status is on waiting list. And if I just click on these vertical dots on the right and click move off waiting list, it'll move this person off the waiting list. And then in a later lesson, we'll show how to set up a trigger for them to get an email telling them that they can now go sign in because they're off the waiting list. But we'll do that in a couple more lessons. So we'll click this here. And if I think we just refresh the browser and come back to this, it should show as verified. So let's just make sure that happened. Back to the end users table. Yes, so end user dan@test.com is verified and off the waiting list. So let's go see if that test user can sign in. So again, remember I clicked this button to expose the input fields. First thing we'll do, let's put in the right email address, but let's purposely put in a wrong password. Click sign in. All right, so that's great. That's a good start. So we know the invalid username or password action works. So let's just refresh the browser and try this again, which hopefully is the correct password that I used for this user. Success. So remember that action now, that if the action was successful, it would take us to the course page. So now we're in. We have authenticated users and they're accessing the course. One thing to note though is if I'm dan@test.com and I somehow know what the URL is for the admin pages for this app, I could navigate to it and access it. So I don't want that. I created this course. I don't want my users to be able to go in and delete my lessons or add their own videos. So what we'll do next is set up an admin users table to make it so we can flag certain users to be able to access this admin page and make it so it restricts users so they can't get there. And if they try to get there, it'll just redirect them to either the course page or the home page. Except that I almost forgot a really important thing. And so what I did was I did not authenticate that page. So even though I'm signed in and I can get to it, someone who's still not signed in can still get to that course page. So we want to correct that and then we'll be done here. So back in the studio, what I want to do is go to the course page and it's really easy. Single click. So this page now requires authentication. And so I have another browser open that I'll drag in here, which is not Chrome, which is what I've been using, where I'm most certainly not signed in as a user and I was able to get to the course page. But hopefully now that I turned on that authentication, if I refresh, yes. So now I can't get to it. It's just going to redirect me back to my home page. So that should do it. Now that my test user was signed in, I'll still be able to get to the course, but anyone who's either on the waiting list or just not a user at all won't be able to get there. So we're going to authenticate our two admin pages, the one we're going to create for users next, and then also the lessons one. And then what we're going to do is do some further restrictions so that users that we flag as admins are the only ones that can get to those admin pages. So a couple of levels of permissions will be created there. All right, see you in the next one. Thanks.